www.JessFM.ca. That was Joey Styles with a track called "Save Your Soul," SYS featuring Black Kiss. Sorry. What I've been doing is I have to take a couple weeks off of my show here. I have to apologize to any of my faithful listeners out there. I really do appreciate people that listen out there and support me. I appreciate everybody. What happened though was I lost a very close cousin of mine, a very close relation. He passed away, so I had to take a couple of weeks off just out of respect to my family, as well as just to keep my cool, I guess. So I got a little disclaimer about the show today. Today we're talking about some tough stuff, some issues. We're talking about losing loved ones. I've lost close family to suicide, to murder. I'm not talking some distant relative that you know about. These people I see on a regular basis. People I look forward to seeing again. Gone. So if this is a topic that is a bit too touchy for you, then maybe you're listening to the right program if this is too touchy for you. We all need to heal sometimes, so I just want to say rest in peace to all the loved ones out there that we've lost recently. The one I'm speaking of is my cousin CJ Bravehawk. We lost him recently. So what's been going on is there's been a lot of it's not like it happens to all of us. I think everybody goes through a time in their life where they think this is it. I can't do this anymore, and people decide it's over. My sister killed herself back in 2006. She was born in 1984, so that would have made her 22 years old. She was pregnant at the time too when she killed herself. She hung herself. So it's not it's not an issue that I'm not familiar with. I'm actually very familiar with this issue, and I don't think it's something that we should hide behind either. I don't think we should be afraid to talk about suicide in our communities, especially amongst the men. Honestly, the men they sometimes get a little bit overlooked, I feel like, and in our communities, I feel we're missing a lot of our warriors. There's a call right now. Where are our warriors? And I think it has a lot to do with healing. Our men need to start working. I'm not pointing any fingers because I'm just as crooked as the next person. But I think we all need to start just looking at ways to help ourselves out there, not being afraid to actually reach out for help. To know that there's people out there that are willing to help you. There's people that love you. You have family, you have friends, you have parents. There's always people out there for you. So don't ever think that you're alone. There's always someone out there. So what I did was I started sitting back and I was thinking, okay, suicide. That's all that was on my brain. And I started like what I always do, my faithful listeners out there. I don't do nothing all day long. I Google stuff. So I started Googling suicide, right? And I thought, well, I'm going to do this whole big W5 thing on suicide. Who is it affecting here in Canada? There's all of us, really. I wanted to find out some stats. What are some stats on suicide? And, where is it the most prevalent in Canada? When I'm talking by when, like what age is it most common amongst the people? Why is it happening? I think everybody has their own opinions on why it's happening, but I wanted to look at some stats. I looked at a couple of case studies, about 3 case studies of 3 different communities, First Nations communities across Canada, where they are having a real problem with suicide in the past few years. So it's not just our community here in the Blood Tribe. And honestly, what shook me about it is not that it's been happening, but it's been happening. It's that it's affecting all age groups. At one time, we all thought it was just the young people, right? And then we started accepting that, which still isn't acceptable. Then it grew up to an older age group, and now you got people who have lived 50 years of their lives who are deciding to kill themselves. Now that's where I think it gets a little crazy, is when our older people are deciding that they can't do it, then, what hope do the young people have? They always get told things are going to get better. Things are going to get better. You're going to grow out of this. It's a phase. Well, if the older people are doing it, then good golly, Miss Molly, I think there's a problem. So that's where I sat back and I started thinking, well, what's going on out there? So I'm going to read you some stats right here that I thought were pretty crazy, actually. The suicide rates for Indigenous male youth are 126 per 100,000. That's Indigenous male youth. 126 out of 100,000 this year will kill themselves. Now, that's compared to 24 out of 100,000 non-Indigenous male youth. So 126 out of 100,000 compared to 24 out of 100,000. That's Indigenous male youth to non-Indigenous male youth. Now, you take a look at Indigenous females. It's 35 out of 100,000. Now, that's significantly smaller number than the Indigenous male youth, which is 126. This is 35 per 100,000. And this is compared to 5 per 100,000 non-Indigenous females. Now, these are suicide rates that I'm reading off here. I thought that was crazy. And then you look at the per 1,000, it's broken down even further, broken down amongst First Nations and Inuit. Now, this one kind of shocked me a little bit because the numbers were 24 per 100,000 First Nations compared to 135 per 100,000 Inuit. Now, that says a lot to me because we always get lumped into the same Indigenous category with the Inuit people, First Nations, Inuit, Métis, they call it FNMI now. We all kind of get lumped into this category, and therefore our statistics get lumped together. And you're looking at this, and you're looking at the disparity between the Inuit and the First Nations. It's most of the Inuit people from the northern communities that are suffering from the suicide epidemic, which shocked me and made me think, well, then why are they cramming it down our throats that First Nations people are killing themselves every day? It's that statistic being lumped in there as this pan-Indian statistic. Honestly, that's what it is. So let's look at a little bit of stats here. Approximately 55% of all Indigenous people are under 25 years of age. A lot of people knew about that. Suicide rates are actually amongst the highest in the world, 11 times the national average. Okay. And suicide and self-inflicted injuries are the leading causes of death for First Nations youth and adults up to 44 years of age. That's another shock one. 44 years of age, right? Jeez. So these are just, this is from the StatsCan. It's a StatsCan website. It's called Center for Suicide Prevention. You can find it at www.suicideinfo.ca. It talks about legacies of colonization. They got pictures of nurses, nuns. It's always the nuns, right? Protective factors, risk factors. Risk factors are depression, other mental illnesses, alcohol, drug dependency, hopelessness, low self-esteem, sexual abuse and violence, parental loss, homelessness. Childhood trauma. I think that's one of the biggest problems in our communities, childhood trauma. Our kids are going through the craziest stuff. And sometimes we just forget that's what our kids are seeing. So that's what's happening, right? Those are a few of the stats, and you're looking at them right now. And we're finding out where is it most prevalent, right? It's the northern communities, these remote communities out there. So I took a look. We just went through a little bit of the old media there, and we were taking a look at some local stories here. And I think it was Ottawapiskat, way out there, if this thing will pop up. But they've been going through their own crisis out that way. Here it is. 1 year after suicide crisis, Ottawapiskat still lacking mental health resources. This is at globalnews.ca. That's another thing. When we're looking at all these, when we went for stories about like communities that were suffering from suicide, they were all from white media. They didn't come from native media outlets. So you got to make sure that when you're reading this stuff, they're coming from a non-Indigenous perspective. And it really felt like poverty porn. That's what we call it. We're looking out there. We're on the internet trolling for poverty porn. And we found it, man. It's everywhere. So just to let you know what we're looking at here. So more than a year after Attawapiskat declared a state of emergency following a spike in suicide attempts, members of the small Indigenous community in Northern Ontario say there's still a desperate lack of mental health resources. Jackie Hukamal is haunted by the last words of her 13-year-old grandniece, Sheridan. The teen's suicide became symbolic of the tragic crisis that swept through the Cree community of about 2000 in April 2016. Her grandniece said, "I'm being bullied. I'm tired. I'm tired of being sick." And she said, "I'm sorry. I love you. Please don't blame yourselves." That was her grandniece. Little 13-year-old girl. So she killed herself after being bullied at school. There was actually a lot more than that going on. I think there was, how many people? There's an 11-year-old killed herself. There's nearly a dozen suicide attempts in a single Saturday night. And that's the one that involved the 11-year-old. And there's more than 100 in the previous 7 months. Now, this is a little community of 2,000 people. So everyone knows each other. In a small community like that, you're going to hear about it everywhere. So they say, what do they say? My people are suffering from poor conditions, poor housing, poor water supply, poor, right? Poor. It does come down to that, really. It comes down to poverty. Really, in the end, it gets down to poverty. Why is this happening? We talk about childhood trauma, childhood sexual abuse, and it's not only the victims that suffer as well. And I'm not like pointing fingers. I'm not like doing anything, but as well, the perpetrators suffer in years as well. Years gone from the guilt and whatnot. Like, this stuff is real and it's scary. And I know I'm the one that has to talk about it here, but I will. That's what happens. There's this level of guilt that happens, and sexual abuse, it hurts everybody. The violence. This has to do with childhood trauma, being exposed to the violence, being hit or seeing people being hit, watching fights, outside your door. You could be protected inside your house, but look outside and you see someone getting their head kicked in out your front door, right? That's exposure to violence right there, and childhood trauma, the stress that comes from that. Another big thing that I found is financial stress. Now, financial stress is one of the biggest things I feel that kills a lot of people, a lot of adults, grown people. And if you're living in day-to-day survival mode, pressure to maintain what society deems a good life or a healthy life, or I don't know what it is. Society thinks that if you got stuff, you're doing good, right? You got a TV, you got a car, you got some nice shoes, you're doing all right. That's what society tells you, right? But how are you supposed to get that stuff? You got no money, right? So you're living in survival mode day to day, which means this financial burden is constantly looming on you. And when you can't make ends meet, you're stressed constantly and you're angry constantly. I know this stress, right? I'm broke all the time. Come on. So this financial stress really does get to you. And I feel that a lot of times what happens is our people who do fall into the addiction, which part of the cycle of poverty, you fall into addiction because you just want to forget a lot of times. You just want to just check out for a minute and enjoy yourself and don't worry for a second. You go and you blow the money. You blow the money on a good time. And that quadruples the financial stress that's in your head, right? You just spent the rent. You just spent the kids' money. You just, you blew something. It's like, oh, man. Financial stress, right? I know that. So there's another factor that's been doing it, right? You got to watch out for that kind of stuff. And there's people out there to help you, Honestly, a couple $1,000 ain't worth your life, right? anymore. Your life ain't actually worth any amount of money. And who cares if you owe people money? They'll live. They'll live if you don't pay them back. You just remember you got to take care of yourself first. That's financial stress right there. So yeah, what happened was I stumbled across this other article. I was looking through there, and I'm gonna pop up another one after this. After we're gonna get into a song, but this is a community, the Anishinaabe-Aski. I think that's how you say it. Anishinaabe-Aski. This is a Toronto Sun. There was 4 suicides recently in that community within a very short span of time, and this included an adult and some kids. And what happened was since January, actually, there has been 18 suicides in that. It's a collection of, I think, about 3 or 4 communities in a small little northern Ontario area. And the chiefs up there are declaring a state of emergency. Everybody's killing themselves up there. What did it say? 3 children and a 21-year-old man have committed suicide in a number of Indigenous communities. There have been 18 suicides, including the most recent deaths within the Anishinaabe-Aski Nation's territory since January 1st of this year, according to statistics provided by Anishinaabe-Aski Nation spokesman. So, yeah, this is happening everywhere. I just want to say, stay strong, everybody. We're all suffering from this, and there's people out there that are willing to help you. And all I gotta say is, when life gets you down, all you gotta say is, "Skoden." Step up and say "Skoden," and that's gonna lead us into our next song by the Snotty Nosed Res Kids. You're listening to TukkLive on JessFM.ca. Skoden. Hope that wasn't too deep, boy. Facebook.
Are you gonna keep going?
What's that?
Are you gonna keep going?
On the suicide? On the what?
Yeah, on the suicide. Well, what time is it?
Well, I want to get into that suicide capital of the world. That stupid headline. Weird. I forget what that place is called, though. Yeah, it's got a weird name. Pekangakum. 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 Pekangahoon. I do not know.